Welcome back to the Change Your Life podcast. My name is Dwight Gillespie. I'm your host. If you haven't done so yet, please hit the subscribe button, hit the share button, hit the like button, hit all the right buttons, and share this with your friends, please. Especially if you get something out of it. Even if you don't, I'm okay with you sharing it, but hopefully you do. Anyway, this is the Change Your Life podcast, where we like to think we give practical suggestions on life. I never give advice, and I try not to tell people what to do. I especially don't like to make decisions for people. I do mentor some guys. I'm going to tell you that today's podcast, just so you know, is 3 ways to make sure that your relationship will fail, because we always like looking at the positive here at Change Your Life, right? You would think that some people really go out of their way to make their relationships fail. They must, because they practice these things, right? So we want to give you practical suggestions. So if you want your relationship to fail, do these 3 things, and I guarantee you, unless you're with a simpleton, which could be the case, you don't know. But anyway, your relationship will fail if you do these 3 things. And we do have a couple honorable mentions, which we'll get to as well. But the first thing is communication. We all know how vital communication is to any relationship, and not just between, between lovers, but between people, just your friendships and everything, your interpersonal relationships with family and everything. But when you're talking about a significant other, right? When you're talking about a mate in any sense of the word, communication, they say, is vital. So a good way to make sure that relationship fails is to have really poor communications. And how do you do that? This is one of my favorites. Make them guess. Make them guess. I have been in this, and this reminds me of both my ex-wives, because I was very good at making them guess. And they were good at making me guess as well. Why don't you know? You should know how I feel. Why don't you know how I feel? That's the old joke. Communication. And that is one of the things, I have a friend, and they're both of these people are dear friends of mine. I love them to death. And they really do seem to make a really good couple. But they both seem to think that the other one should know through some kind of, some Svengali kind of knowledge of what the other one is thinking and feeling at all times, with little hints given here and there. Well, I said that I preferred this. 6 months ago, I let them know, but you never said that this is what you wanted. Did you ever tell this person, like, this is what I want? Well, I shouldn't have to. Well, why not? What are they, mind read? Well, if they really knew me, well, how does a person get to really know you if you don't tell them what you like and what you don't like? People can't guess, why are you upset? What do you mean, why am I upset? Why do you think I'm upset? I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't have to ask you. So that's like rule number 1, right? You want the relationship to fail. Don't ever tell the person why you're upset, how you can stop being upset, right? The things that upset you. If you don't know, if every time your mate, let's just use this as an example, because this is something that used to irritate the crap out of me. One of the things that I do fairly well is I show up on time. I just got this thing. One of the few things my father was able to tell me. He didn't give me a lot of valuable life lessons, I got to tell you. But one of the things my father taught me about was being on time. He says, it's important to be on time. And you say, well, why? Well, it's important to be on time because the other person's time is valuable. Even if you don't value your own, value the other person's time. If you have an appointment with someone for 2:00, and you plan on being with them for an hour and a half, and you show up a half an hour late, well, that threw their plans off by half an hour. For all you know, they've got something to do an hour and a half from now, right? So anyway, so be on time, So especially the second wife, especially, she had a habit of running late. And it used to irritate the crap out of me. But I didn't say anything. I would eat it. And then we go out on the road, and I drive very aggressively and with a lot of anger, and get pissed at everybody around me, right? Because I refused to tell her what was really bothering me. And I took it out. I had a good friend, there's Elliot, and he said, it's easier for us to get pissed at strangers than it is to tell people we love, than to take that risk and let people that we love know that what they're doing is bothering us, or that what they're doing is hurting us. It's safer. But in the long run, it's more detrimental because you start bottling this up, and it can kill something inside of you. So communication, don't communicate. Don't ever tell somebody how you feel or what you're thinking or what it is about them that you love or hate, right? So that they can never adjust, and you can just go on and you can start to seethe and really loathe them inside. It's really good. Okay, the next thing that you can do, right, is to lie often and about meaningless stuff. I was really good for this. I used to lie about absolutely anything, and I did it out of habit. Like I grew up in I grew up in a house where lying was a way of life. You were never honest about anything. And there were reasons for it. I grew up, if you've listened to the podcast, I grew up in a really rough house. I grew up, there was a lot of stuff going on. It was very chaotic. It was very physical. It was very abusive, and both mentally and physically abusive. And as a result of that, you learn to lie, because it was better. You take a shot, and that's the way I looked at it. Is you take a shot, and I also learned that in my relationship, especially again with the second wife, and I use that as an example the most because it was the longest relationship I had. We were together for 20 years, and we're still friends, but only because of the work that I've done here and the stuff that I talk about here. But anyway, lying had become a way of life, and I would lie about stuff that didn't matter. Where were you? I don't know. And automatically I would spit out a lie. Why did you do this? Who were you with? All of these things, and it all became just one lie after another one, and all the simple stuff, right? And I did it because I didn't know any better, and especially when I had relapsed on drugs, then it became, I would lie out of habit, and especially when it came to money or anything like that, where I was, what I was doing, who I was seeing, and things like that, and getting caught in these stupid lies, and they add up. And one thing I can tell you is that when you lie enough and you keep getting caught, that what it does is obviously any kind of trust that your mate has in you just disintegrates. And having no trust in a relationship, it's almost impossible to be on both sides of that equation. When you have no trust in somebody, it's horrible because you constantly believe they're lying to you. You constantly believe the worst. You constantly question where they are, who they're with, who they're going with, why they're there, all of these things. So you're constantly, your gut is in a knot, right? And when you are the one who isn't trusted, it's also hard because you have to account for yourself every minute of the day. And I can't say that she was justified in all this because she was nuts about it too. She was nuts about every minute. I had to account for every single minute. But that also comes as a lack of trust. So now I want to know where you were from 8:17 p.m. to 8:37 p.m. and account for every minute. And you can't. It's impossible. And you're constantly on guard, and you constantly feel under attack because you are, but you've earned it. It's like a dog chasing its tail. You get into that thing where, it's very difficult to not trust and to not be trusted. And a lot of times when you've hit a situation like that, it's effectively over because, and I've heard it said, and we are going to start, by the way, we talked about it this morning, right? That we're going to start doing these reaction videos because I hear it all the time. On these, I love it. Steve Wilkos and Maury, they're two of my favorite shows, and people still look at me funny when I say that. But that whole thing of, well, he cheated on me. Well, do you trust him now? Well, I keep him under my thumb, and it's said with such derision, with such malice in the tone and in the voice, they're under my thumb. And I, you come home and they want to sniff your body for foreign perfumes. They want to check your phone to see every call and every text. And, they check your GPS and follow your every movement. How the hell do you live like that on either side? Like to be the one that has to check, that has so little trust, and to be the one that's being checked up on. Essentially, your relationship's over because it's impossible to live like that. Even if you manage, it's a horrible existence. You're no longer living a life. You're living an existence. You are merely existing from day to day. You're surviving. And that's all that is because there's no life to be had. Because even when you're out together, it's, "Were you looking at that person? Why were you nice?" And blah, 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 blah. It's almost impossible, right? So there's two things you can do to really, really make that relationship fail. And folks, we're going to give you the third thing. The third is the absolute best, and that is to cheat. Definitely cheat. You want to end that relationship? Cheat, right? And tell absolutely unbelievable lies to cover it all up. Because I love that one. I remember watching this show where the guy was basically told this girl that his girl that he was abducted and was held for ransom, but they didn't know where to send the ransom note or something like crap like this, right? And he wound up, they knocked him out and put him in a dumpster where he laid for 3 days. And like, it's just insane. And this woman wanted a lie detector test to see if this was true or not. Honey, it's not true. It never happened. It never happened. He was out there with another woman having sex. Like, that's what he was doing. And God knows what he was telling that woman. But cheat and tell outrageous lies that are just so totally unbelievable that, if your significant other believes the lies, that would make you want to leave that person. That's how outlandish the lies should be. It's just like, if you believe this, you're an absolute moron and you really deserve to have somebody cheat on you. Turns out there's nothing in the U.S. Constitution that says that you have to love somebody who treats you like crap constantly. There's nothing in it. There's no law. There's no regard at all that you have to love someone, including family for that matter. That when people hurt you and when they lie to you and deceive you and do all of these things, there's nothing that says you have to love them. And what you have to start asking yourself is, what about this person do I love? Because that's the age-old question. What about them do I love? Do I love the way they cheat on me, lie to me? They do all these things, don't tell me how they feel, don't tell me what they're thinking, just get mad at me for no apparent reason at all without telling me why they're upset. When you get into that situation, and again, it happens with family, it happens with lovers, it happens with all of that stuff. And I'm a big believer in, you don't have to love anyone. And that when people consistently hurt you, that it's in your best interest to say, you know what? Maybe I do love you, maybe I don't, but I can no longer allow you to treat me this way. And I'm out of here. I have some runners up, right? Because there are some other things that you can do, and I thought these were also good ways to get out of there. Is constant unaffordable drug use. All right, develop a heroin habit. Oh God, you want to get rid of that relationship? Heroin. Definitely the way to go. I'm being sarcastic, by the way. I'm not suggesting in any way, shape, or form that people go out and develop a heroin habit. Okay, please understand. Heroin, drugs are bad. I learned that on South Park. Drugs are bad. Yeah. And as a recovering addict myself, I can tell you that it is a very surefire way to destroy a relationship. When I remember my ex-wife used to say that the mortgage at the time was $1,800, and they wouldn't take partial payments, which I think is just ridiculous, right? You should take any money I'm willing to give you. But she'd say, we're $100 short for the mortgage. And I would be like, cool, man. It's like an extra $1,700 to spend. And she would say, like, how does your brain work? Like, how do you come up with this shit no, like, we need another $100. Like, get $100 from somewhere so we can pay the mortgage. And it just never sunk in for me. Like, to me, that was like, no. That's a couple bundles of dope and, cigarettes and I used to eat these for lunch. I would have these little Hostess squares. They were Hostess fruit squares, apple, and I love the apple ones and lemon. And I would eat these, and I was convinced that it was okay because, like, they had fruit in them. So it was nutritious, man. And they had the 25-cent juice drinks. And so it's like for 75 cents, I could have lunch. And it didn't impede my drug use and my cigarette smoking and all the other good stuff I used to like to do. Another thing that you can do if you want to get out of there, right, is quitting job after, hey, I'm looking at my notes, obviously. Quitting job after job because you're waiting for your big break in your music career. And it's not true that people don't make it after 40. Some people do, you know. Grandma Moses made it as a painter after 80, you know. So you can become that rock and roller you always wanted to become. And just keep quitting those jobs, or lie about going out. You know, the equivalent is lie about going out for the job interviews too. That's another one. Yeah, baby, I'm going out to which works really well with the heroin habit, by the way. If you can develop like a heroin or a crack habit along with just like quitting job after job, and after a while you won't have to worry because there won't be any jobs to quit. Um, but these are my ways of ending a relationship. If you really want to, like definitely 3 ways to get out of that relationship. Or you can just be an adult and say, you know what, this isn't working out. And instead of dragging you through all this muck and mire to get out of this, I'm going to do the adult thing, and I'm gonna end this relationship because it's just not working out anymore. There's nothing worse, I think, than being miserable, and that's another podcast in itself. But there really is nothing worse than being miserable in a relationship and coming home day after day and wondering why. And I'm not talking about, oh, you hit a little rough patch. Look, if you're in a point, I always love this when people say, oh, the last 2 years have been hell. Well, if the last 2 years have been hell, you shouldn't be in that relationship anymore. It's not working. And no matter what you do, you are attached to one another, you're addicted to one another, but you certainly can't love somebody who constantly abuses you, unless, of course, that's what you're used to. If you grew up in that atmosphere, and there are a lot of good books. One of them is, what is it? Codependent No More, which is like the Bible of codependency. It was written many, many years ago. And it really is a good book, and you may want to take a look at it. If you're with somebody who constantly treats you like crap and you stay in there and you get into relationship after relationship with the same person. We always say, it's the same person with a different face and a different name just so you can tell them apart. If that's the case, you really need to do some work on yourself. Maybe seek some therapy. Listen to this podcast more often because it will definitely lead you to a better place. And I really believe that. I think that I've learned a lot through my life experiences. That some of the suggestions that you'll get here on this podcast can really help you out with a lot of these issues. But I always recommend professional therapy. I recommend support groups. They're like adult children of alcoholics is a good thing. Al-Anon, Nar-Anon is another good one. There are tons of these groups out there. Codependent groups. You can get into a lot of codependent groups as well, and a lot of 12-step programs that can help you out along the way. And listen, I highly recommend it because there's nothing worse than wasting your life being miserable. Life is great, man, and it's meant to be lived. And so I'll say goodbye on that note. I wish you a great week. I thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Dwight Gillespie. This is the Change Your Life podcast. Again, like, subscribe, and share it with your friends by all means. If you think there's something in here worth listening to and you have a friend who's in this situation, share the video with them. Let them know you care. Be well now. Thank you. Bye.